Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Strength Through the Struggle. You know, I just wish I would have had the recorder going for the pre-interview conversation that Zen Len Wright, my good friend, and I were having because it's like all of our conversations. They end up in these places where it transforms my mind into a new mind and to a fresher mind and seeing the world differently. So we figured we better hit the record button before we lose any more gold. So Len, welcome back to the show.
My brother, I'm so excited about what we're going to be able to uncover today.
Yeah, me too, man. So, you know, maybe somebody on the recording now or listening now, they're not familiar with you. Could you give us a little insight as to who Len Wright is these days?
I don't know.
Okay.
And that's where I like to keep it. We can go into that more. I couldn't help but starting with that. But, um, I'm actually nearing 50. I'm 48. I'll be 49 this year. I have had an interesting life, my brother. It's all been actually focused around what I'm doing still, and that is journeying within deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've always been enamored by life's mysteries. The things that we all chalk up to as I have no clue what has happened there. It's always been a real pull of mine, and even since I was little, I was raised in a very religious Christian fundamental upbringing, and I was there till I was about 26 years old. And my wife and I was married in that, and my wife and I left that, and for a few years we didn't have any beliefs at all. Really, like we didn't know what, and for most people that's really really frightening. And for us, it was scary at a lot of times, but it was very liberating and strengthening. And my journey really picked up speed. When I was in my mid-20s, I started training in different techniques and tools along the way for subconscious manipulation. For shifting consciousness in different ways. And there's a lot of different tools out. I started with neurolinguistic programming, became a master practitioner under Richard Bandler and John Laval with that. And then I went on to various different tools as hypnotherapy, hypnosis, psycho-linguistics. Recently in the last, 4 or 5 years, something like that, 3, 4 years, something like that, accelerated evolution, which is another set of what they call spiritual techniques. And they're all forms of subconscious communication, if you'd like, ways to be able to understand the mind, and that has been my driving force my whole life. And so it just keeps getting deeper and deeper for myself, which I love. I say the floor, once I think I've got a handle of things, the floor is out from under me, and all of a sudden I'm in the dark again, which is I found that I really really love now. That always constant learning is what I've found to be mankind's purpose as to why we're here, and we can go into that a little bit more. But no one is I really don't know how to identify myself to everybody, other than a mystic advisor, mental alchemist. I call my site is Zen Len Coaching, but coaching is not really what I do. It's all sums up in the ability to transform ourselves and be the alchemists that we're meant to be.
So when you say transform ourselves, like where does that transformation, because I see people over time, myself included, sometimes transforming myself in the opposite direction of where I think I want to go. So are you helping people in your conversations with them transform in the right direction, whatever the right direction means?
Well, and I'm glad you picked that up, because we were hinting on that on our pre-conversation a little bit, and it's a perfect segue to go into that. Whose right are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's my right, then I'm imposing that on their free will,
Mm-hmm.
which is not right. If it's their right, who's to say that they know what's right for them because they're the one with the issue? If they knew what was so-called right for them, they would not be struggling with the issue. They may still have it, but they wouldn't be struggling with it. When you struggle with something, it's because of not understanding it, not knowing why or what it's doing. You struggle with it, trying to make sense of it, right? And that's part of the learning process. It's part of the process of having that experience. Because I believe, it's my humble opinion, that that is there to be able to teach you. All events, all experiences, all things that we come into contact with in our life, including ourselves, is there as a means of a school to teach, to educate us as to our real selves. Everything outside of ourselves is projected from who we are, who we believe we are inside. Those beliefs, that architecture, that structure of who we think we are, what's our place in the world, why am I here, the identities that we place on ourselves, all make up that so-called, Airbally's right for us. So in other words, what we're really asking for when we're wanting something to go right for us is to go our way. And what I find funny is, even if we look at, if you look at all holy scriptures or all holy books around the world, all esoteric teachings, it is all focused on the opposite, which is thy will. And I'm not going into religion here, but something bigger than just what I want in my day to fulfill my own needs. That type of life is very shallow. To go deeper, it's all about that service. It's all about that.
Oh, sorry,
No?
so I just want to get clear. So what you're saying is what I think is right and what I think I want, sometimes it's just a self-serving mechanism that may or may not be good for me and those around me. And I don't want to get into like we're just here to exist for everybody else's pleasure and benefit, but
Yeah. No, and I'm not there either. I don't mean that either. I'm saying how to enjoy this life the most for yourself is to understand that the ability to think that we know what we're doing is most of the time the stumbling block that gets in our way from actually doing it. Once you know, or once you think you know something, you stop learning about it. And so, once you call yourself a master, your brain sort of shuts off and goes, okay, don't need to learn anything more about that then. That's why Michelangelo at 87 years old was, the quote that he has out there is, I'm still learning. The ability to become a student is important, and that's where that rightness comes in, because you see, we're only projecting that what's right for us, that thought, well, here's what's right for us, from where we are inside, which is if we're still struggling with our own ego back and forth, it's more than likely going to be a selfish right for us. But we haven't gone to that depth of level of, well, what does that mean for everybody involved? What ripples does that cause? Here you get into the point where if you were to actually go to, and this is not, this can cloud over to the moral, but I'm not going over to that moral side. I don't mean that. I just mean the people that work in pesticide companies, and not to rattle anybody's chains, but the people that work in pesticide companies, they go to work every day feeling their fulfillment and having their right, what they want, but yet there is going to be a certain amount of deaths that is attributed to that product in that year. Whose right are you talking about? If you talk to the family that was killed by the product, the person that works there's rights wouldn't be right to them. Mm-hmm. So we have to be careful of the labels and the meanings that we put on things. The assurity that we have about everything is part of our problem, because it stops us from being that eternal sponge and learning, going, oh, wow. Because if you came, Mark, and said to the 20-year-old Len, what do you believe about this? I would have spouted off just like a pro what my beliefs were then. Were they truth? Well, they were for me then. That was what I believed full-heartedly then. But they are completely opposite to what I believe today. So am I right here or am I right here? Well, it depended on where I was in my life. The understandings and the beliefs that I had, the experiences that I've had in life that attributed to building those beliefs about it, whether it's right or wrong for me. Because the majority of things that are most beneficial in our life, Mark, if you go back to yours, definitely, would have been things that you would have said no to. Would have been things that you would have said, that's not right for me.
I would never have invited them into my life. I would not have scripted
Boom.
my life. I wouldn't have written a story with some of these things. I would have wholeheartedly rejected them.
And if you don't understand what life is and the purpose and the way that challenges fit in and grow us through it, the school that it is, if you don't have that perception, it's very difficult to be able to go through life without that stumbling of a constant friction. But when you see everything as the teacher, you revert to a student level, which means that you're not so sure about everything. You're learning all the time. And when you are that, life becomes more gentle because you change. We, listening, even the people that are watching this and listening to this now will not be the same people as they are right now as they will be at the end of the call. There will be new ideas introduced. They will not be the same people. So when you realize that you're always evolving, you're always changing, you're not so apt to believe all the BS that you hand yourself. Oh, I know this. I know this. Oh, yeah. Well, this is right. This is wrong. This is... Really? You come back in 5 years, this might have changed. So to become... I have a favorite motto that I've learned from an association I belong to, and it's become a walking question mark. And that is one of the most powerful things I've ever been taught. Because if we're a question mark, we're like I said, sponges. We're the eternal humble student. We're not being attached to the meanings and beliefs that we're putting out so that we do harm to others without even realizing it. See, it's about an understanding of the process of living and of life versus, oh, no, you do this. You know, one person's right life is go to church, go to your job, be married, have kids, retirement, die, where the other person looks at it and goes, that's my prison. Who's right? It's about free will. We have to get to a point where we're not projecting our misguided belief systems on everybody else, expecting them to adopt our mental illness.
Well, when you say misguided belief systems, I'm sure there are people who hear that and immediately the hair on the back of their neck is standing up and going, there's nothing misguided about what I believe.
Right.
I know the truth.
And again, let me put a disclaimer on this. As you know me, Mark, it all comes from love. I'm not pointing, right. And I mean, right off at the bat, when I was asked who I was, what did I say? I don't know. I'm not one here saying I'm perfect. I'm saying we're all evolving, but there's the puzzle isn't complete out there. We're not taught the complete understanding and puzzle. It's taken me a whole lifetime and a concentrated 30 years on finding out the stuff I've got now, which is still jumbled up. It will always be a certain amount jumbled up. This is why the greatest minds in history studied this stuff. The Thomas Jeffersons, the Benjamin Franklins, the Leonardo da Vinci's, the Mozarts, the Beethoven, the Brunos, the Spinozas, the highest of all the... This is the information they studied behind it all. This was the passion in their life. Because it's the mystery that just keeps getting deeper and deeper. But to be able to think we know it, think we know what right is a downfall. What does the Bible say? What comes before downfall? Pride. Well, what is pride? Thinking you know.
I know it all. I know the
all.
answer, and there is no other answer. I am wholly wrong, and you are or no, I'm wholly right, completely right, and you are wholly, completely wrong.
And this is what breeds conflict and separation. We have to be careful that our hearts, our minds, our deeds, our words all lead in a place of harmony to others and unity, because we're all one. But this separateness of you're different than me, it only breeds what we're seeing in our world right now. If we actually had the majority of us had the idea of, well, who the heck am I really? like in talking, like I may be really wrong about this. This is what my opinion is. But who knows? I might be wrong. And we instead got rid of the stigma of not knowing. Because you see, we're taught in our education system, we're taught in our governments, we're taught, if you don't know the answer to this, you're dumb, you're ignorant, you don't know, No, it's the other way around. If we're not so sure about things, we tread lightly in our world. When you're so sure, you breed conflict where you go. You're poking everything in your world, right? It's the other way around of being able to. Beliefs are a funny thing, Mark. You can change beliefs like that, which means they're not really real. And yet people will die for them. And it was one thing that when I started studying belief systems, it was a shocker. Because you'll have somebody that does, well, I mean, take your story as an example. Years ago, you looked at what happened to Josh as a pretty crummy thing in your life and horrible, couldn't understand it. Now, it's a different thing for you. So was the experience good or bad?
You know, I was on a Facebook Live with a gentleman last night, and we were discussing that. And I do see things differently. I try not to look at it as this tragic, horrific event, even though there was a tragic and horrific outcome to my son's brain. So, you know, if I could allow my son to not have to go through that, I would probably exit the whole, that part
Well,
of my life.
and
But
that's why we're not in control of that.
right. And yet now, without like celebrating it and going, "Oh man, this was the best thing ever," I want to see it as something that's going to allow myself and my son to grow, to become better versions of ourselves, to instill more, a harder work ethic and more humanity, more compassion, but also more strength. I hope for both sides of the coin to show up for us. But I think it's tough to wrap your head around what
Mhm.
would be traditionally defined as a tragedy and go, what's this is going to work out for the best. Like my life will be better because I lost my leg, or my life will work out better because my 3-year-old died of cancer. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so tough in our human experience to wrap our minds around those types of things in the moment and say I'm even having a hard time saying the word, like it's
It's
good.
okay. It's okay
Yeah.
even. And you're right. I mean, welcome to my world, right? I mean, it is definitely not an easy path, but yet at the same time, the rewards that come from it are immense, because the fear and the lack of love shown to be able to have the world come in on you like that, to perceive it in a way that hurts yourself. See, this is the reasoning behind it. Because if you just look at it from doing it, like, taking this tragic thing into something good, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. The perceptual difference is being able to see it in a way of, okay, this happened no matter what. So now that it's happened, how can it serve me? How can I unwrap this gift in a way that I can somehow, as you said, become a better human being out of this? And you start to extrapolate value out of even the worst experiences. And now what you're talking about is mastership. That's all a master does in the world. I mean, look at the masters that have walked the world. Whether you're talking about Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, Gandhi, you could go on and on about these people that we revere and respect because of their stand in a spiritual way. But it was all based on that choice of perception with an understanding of, I'm doing this for a reason. It's like working out, Mark. Working out is painful. It is. If you're really doing it properly, you're tearing muscles. It's painful, but your belief is there of why you're doing it, because you want to get in better shape. You want to look this way. You want to do this. You want to be healthy. You have a reason as to why this is happening. The pain's happening. So you willingly go in for it. You almost sometimes crave it after a while. Okay, well, that's the only thing that made that difference was understanding. If you didn't think you got better through that, how many people would go work out and put themselves through the major pain if they didn't know that there was any kind of benefit from it? That's what's happening in our world, and that's what I meant by misleading beliefs. They believe, as an example of many beliefs, the dogmatic approach of seeing the world come in, beat them up, come in on them, happen to them, which is very painful. So that's what I meant before by misguided beliefs. I'm not trying to, everybody's wrong. I don't mean that. I just mean that the premise of how we live has been messed up because some of the puzzle pieces aren't there as readily. And that's what I'm talking about. The perception of being able to choose, okay, my son has had this horrific experience. Okay, it's not an experience I would have chosen any day of the week. But it's happened. Now what do I do with it? Now I'm not saying that instantly you go to this panacea where it's all, this is why spirituality is all talked about with warriors and bravery, courage, knights.
Battle.
That's bad. It's I could never understand that in my youth with how does that go together? Well, because the inner work is that. It is the great work. And so when you look at your life as this great work unfolding within you, the ability to see that all events in your life, all experiences are endeavoring to draw you to a closer relationship with yourself, to show you who you really are. Then when you look at this situation with Josh as an example, okay, it could be anything, but this is a pretty major one to use. When you look at that, the story wasn't stopped then. You were in the middle of it. Now look at the story unfolding. Well, do you think that maybe Josh would have ever been up speaking in front of anybody if his life was a normal 15-year-old?
No.
If nothing would have happened?
No. No.
Right. Do you think that it's gained a unique kind of perspective and maturity of wanting to maybe help others and more focus on love, learning it?
I think he's struggling with that because, he still feels this deficit of not.
Right.
But when he stood in front of an audience for the first time and he, finished our talk and he got a standing ovation, that started a transformation in his own heart and mind about how he saw himself.
And the crowd. How many people, even to today, still have Josh probably come up in their mind when they're going through something? So you see, now let's take that as an example of what we're talking about. You labeled it when it happened as bad, really terrible, horrific. Okay?
Hold on. So I want to interrupt that because, to be completely honest, those first, I don't know if it was 6 weeks, 2 months, whatever, but a news crew came in. Several had been coming in, and they interviewed me at the hospital, and they were talking about, well, what would you say to the driver? And they're really trying to stimulate something. But at one point, I told her, I can't help but think something good is going to come of this someday. So, like, even back then, my mind was, no, something good can come of this. Now, that being said, it got drowned out by all the other,
Yeah.
like that little seed is,
I get it. Yeah. But you see, the seed is the thing, right? The seed is there because it is a possibility. It doesn't mean you have to choose it. None of what I'm saying you have to do. Like, this is not a have to world that I'm living in that way. I'm looking at, you get to use your free will as a power of choice. What is going to add the most to your life? What's going to make you the most happiest in the end? So I'm glad you brought that up, because that seed does appear at all times, but sometimes it's very drowned out. And sometimes you can't even see that, but it is always there. So in this experience, for the first while, you're probably going, with it. And in that time, you would not have picked it. It's a bad thing. Now fast forward it through all this time, the work that it's enabled you to do inside, the way that it's enabled you to now perceive life and the things it's brought into it, your speaking career, the book, all this stuff is really at the core. These experiences are the reason you're writing it. That's what made you. That was the schooling that got you here. Okay, so also Josh speaking. We have no idea when Josh is 30 years old what he'll be doing. But you see, that's when the story continues on. See, we have such a myopic, limited view of all our experiences. We look at the snapshot of what happened and went, that's bad, that's good, and we label it. Then we have to live through it that way. But the reality is the old saying, oh, I'm going to laugh at this later. Well, why not now? Why not bring something into it that actually instills where you want it to go? I'm not saying that's easy. It sounds like I'm just saying, oh, drivel, like it's great and easy. It's not. This is hard work, but at the same time, once you're able to do that, you're able to cause yourself as well as those around you a lot less harm and pain. Because when we're in the states of freaking out in any way, shape, and form, feeling insecure, anything, it hurts us. And by outer projection, it hurts others as well, because we say things, we do things, we react quicker to the outer world, that we then plant those types of seeds in our life. So it's a big subject. I mean, if you look at esoteric philosophy, this is really what it's teaching through thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The ability to be able to be the master of your own self. Know thyself, as Socrates said, so that you can choose how you go through. And not exactly, that's the goal, but you get to go through even this much less pain. And because you're seeing the value now of what you've gone through, the next experience that you go through that's rocking you in some way and coming up against you, you'll now see differently. That seed will be a little bit larger now. And thus you've got the reason why you're here. Period.
A few months ago, I think you've known me long enough, seen enough of my writing. We've had so many one-on-one conversations, just you and I, that you kind of know where my heart's at. Like, my heart is for my son and for other people, and to help them, enjoy this life and live it the best way possible, ultimately. Mm-hmm. And so there was a period of time where with Josh, I never wanted him to think I was dismissing his pain or his experience, and just giving him hey, look, you know what? It happened. You got to suck it up. Let's just get busy. Let's get to work. Because I don't know that work, I don't think that works for most people. I think they need to know that you are shoulder to shoulder with them. Like
I'll just stop you, because there's a point in here that, because some viewers might be at this point where there's a responsible and an irresponsible debate that comes up. And it's not really a debate, because when people say, well, you're just trying to be positive, you're being irresponsible, you forget this, go on with it. It's actually, in my books, the only responsible way to be, because when you are placing over importance on those other subjects, on those other things that are going to have a negative effect, you're actually willingly participating in hurting others. And people don't stop and look at that. They don't stop and look at the chain of events that they are the cause to. And if you're in a state where, no, I've got to worry about this thing, I've got to concentrate and focus on this thing, it's not going to go away by itself. What do you expect me to just forget about it? No, you do the right thing. You concentrate it so much that you now bark at your kid, your neighbor, your dog, that you actually leave darkness behind you because of what you become from what you're focusing on. That, to me, is irresponsible.
And I've done that.
And I've done that. I mean, I the only way I know about it is because, yeah, I've been through that. I'm a little intense. And so, I've had that. And growing up, it was a major issue of mine. And when you learn to be truly responsible from an inward point of view, from a higher point of view, consciously, you're more aware of not hurting yourself or doing harm to anybody else or anything else in your moment, because you realize cause and effect. What am I being the cause to in this moment? What are the effects that's happening in my life because I'm the cause to them? So the right and wrong thing is not about this moral or shallow issue about, dealing with things right or wrong. It's really about, where do we want to take this experience? What do we want to create in it versus having this created upon us? And it's an empowering thing to do, because that is where our creation is. Either way, we're creating. If I go into the anger over a situation, frustration, grief for too long, anything like that, am I not still creating in my world? Yes. So I'm not a right or wrong where it's like you're doing that wrong. No, this is what you're doing, and these are the results. This is the effect you're having. Are you happy with that? Is this serving you and the whole world in general? And I'm going to be doing a video later today about this. Is a real short one, but it's about the most important question that I've ever been taught. And the video actually is going to be called "The One Question That Solves All Problems." And
I want to watch that.
I want to watch it. I've mentioned it before, but it is a valuable one, and I'll say it now, and that is, what would love do in this situation? How would love behave? How would love respond to this person freaking out on me right now because I really see them as freaking out because they're freaking out in their world? Has nothing to do with me. Right? Just because they're pouring it on me I don't have ownership over it. Right? So I look at them and I can actually be that effect that I want. I can be the cause to that, which is, what would love do? Well, love would be understanding. But love would also not be a martyr and just heap more on me. No, it's like, hey, I love you, man. You want help? No? Great. I wish the best for you. I will support you in here. Right? It is learning and studying what love is, and then following that path. Isn't that, again, I mean, for the Christians are on here, Jesus, he taught love. That's it. So that question is a valuable thing. Buddhists, Buddha taught love. That was it. Krishna taught love. That was it. I mean, you can go through any one. Love is it, and that's what this is all about. When you think you're right about something and you're willing to prove it, is that love? Are you being love? Is that how love responds to things? No. So the one question actually can be brought into everything. I mean, even you're working out. You're wanting to quit early. Is this how I love myself? It's the thing that we're not bringing into our lives because we're so concerned about thinking we know it all already. I'm already doing that. Stop it. I love grocery stores. It's incredible. People will yell at their children and say, quiet. They're not even awake enough to realize that the children is actually doing what they're telling them to do by behavior. This is how the world is run. It's not by what we say normally, although that has a true power. But people follow what we are, what we express, who we express. So if we're always striving for the level of love, unconditional love, which is always going to be a striving, right? We don't get there in this way, but if we're always striving for that, aren't we the absolute highest in every moment, in every experience?
Yeah, if that's the filter you're looking through, absolutely.
And are we ever then in that wanting to go into conflict or wanting to be right or wrong? It doesn't matter to us when we're in a state of love. It doesn't matter. And that is how our world will evolve more towards peace, is when each one of us takes accountability for ourselves. As Socrates again, my brother, know thyself. So it's a personal challenging question to everybody. Listen, everybody watching today, do you know yourself well enough that you don't have breakdowns in your day of snapping at people or snapping at yourself or feeling let down or feeling anger or frustration or lack or do you know yourself well enough to be able to avert those pitfalls? These are the goals. And being right and wrong in that world is not going to be the world that gives us peace. So I'll go right back. Does Len know who he is? No, and he never really wants to. I don't want to define myself because I'm always flowering. I'm always growing. And I'm growing in so many different paths, and there's no pressure. There's no expectation. I got to be this. I got to be this. I got to be known as this. I got to be looked at as this. No. I mean, to go along with that analogy, maybe next year I'll take up gardening. I don't know. This is my life.
But on the other side of that coin, aren't the people who maybe are not questioning who they are and they just became person X and at the age of 27 or 13 or 42 stopped like evolving or growing in their heart or their mind or whatever, aren't they doing the same thing? They're going to go, you know what? There's no pressure. I don't need to change because I got it all figured out.
The pressure actually builds, and this is where it's like a misnomer out there in ideology. That's the part of the think I know. Right?
Well, I know people
if you stop learning, you die. You stagnate. There is nothing in energy that is stagnant and still. There's nothing. When is a flower not growing or dying?
It's doing one or the other.
So are we. We cannot do so. The people that actually say, "Oh, I've done this," or I'm this and this, and it's just part of before that fall that happens. But I guarantee you, in some way, shape, and form, it has to happen because that's part of their lesson. Their life lessons. One part is you think it's picture it in a funny way, Mark, of this lineup as we're waiting to get into this planet, and they're handing out cards. Okay, you got insecurity, you feel like your life is shit, and you have all these experiences that are gonna prove that to you, and your job is to figure that out through these experiences that actually it's not that at all. It's just there to serve you so that you can grow through each one of them and become better. And at the end of your life, you're going to love these and embrace all these challenges. Boom, that's yours. Go off, do it. And for another one, it's, okay, you're going to have your heart broken 50 million times. You're not going to be feeling like your value is worth nothing and everything. And your job is to go through all these experiences, learn your value, see that you are part of the divine, and there can be nothing else more important than just you loving you and then spreading that. And you'll maybe get to that at the end of your life. Boom, go do it. And it's just the lineup is just everybody. You got your own stuff, I got my own stuff. But the funny thing is, nobody has ever been on this planet recorded, nobody in time ever recorded that hasn't had these challenges. They must be pretty important. They must serve a purpose, and they do. And that's what it is to, you can only lift up through it. You don't lift up and grow through a joyful experience the same way as you do a grief or a tragedy. A joyful experience leaves you maybe contemplative, pondering the wonderfulness of the universe. A tragedy knocks you to your knees and makes you question life itself. Why am I here? What is this for? It's so valuable. How else could you do that? You pick, okay, Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock, I'm going to go through such immense turmoil within myself that I'm going to be questioning my very being. I may do 3:05. Gotta have my coffee first. We'd never do it. It would never, ever happen. That's the part that's given to us. Our part, being conduits, electrical conduit beings, electricity runs right through us. We're electrical beings. To be able to, as alchemists believed, take in lead, which is low, shallow, lower mind things, like we're talking about. I feel hurt from this person. I'm not forgiving this person. I feel angry at this. I don't have enough of this, whatever it may be. And our job is to be able to take it through our bodies and with our minds and our consciousness, help us to see a different way of perceiving it, a different way of viewing it so that it hurts less and we get more understanding. Then through that, we become new through that experience. It's exactly like working out. It's exactly like working out. You go regular at the gym, boom, 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 you hurt yourself, you grow, you grow, you grow. Wow, look at me, I'm fantastic. I feel great. Why? Because I hurt myself 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we do that with this? Because we have a misguided understanding of what life is. Otherwise, Mark, we would be like, embrace this thing that's happening to me. But none of us really do that. Only masters do. And that's what we're all working towards, that on different varying levels, degrees, if you would, of being able to gain an understanding of that process that I just explained. And on various different levels, that understanding gives us the equivalent reward in our life of happiness, peace, and so-called success. But you see, even the success changes over when you change.
Right.
Right? Be fluid. Bruce Lee, right? Be like water, my friend. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because
It
it's not
works.
fixed. It's not fixed. It's fluid. And because all life is always changing, there is no permanence in anything. To be able to want permanence is constant suffering. The ability to learn how to adapt and flow with change easily and embrace it, just like working out, gives us the opportunity to be able to be more empowered creators in our life. Thus, our life does get better and better and better and better.
Perfect.
So go ahead, sorry, man.
No, go on.
I was just going to say it's been around forever in alchemy. That's what the alchemists did behind the scenes. It's been around for thousands of years because we are that philosopher's stone, Mark. We are what every song, every Bible verse, every Bhagavad Gita, Torah, doesn't matter, all of them talks about the same exact thing, which is us. We're the miracle.
So in the sense of alchemy, is it really about turning lead to gold, or is that really a metaphor and it's really about transforming our lives or our thoughts from whatever is there to something better?
More than just thoughts. It has something to do with it, but it is actually a full chemical transformation. The alchemists actually, at the time that they were living, would have been burned at the stake as witches and as heretics if they would have been outwardly saying, this is what we're doing inside of us, and God dwells within, and all this, their beliefs. They would have been burned. So they created an outward display or working in chemicals, using chemicals as everything was allegory. Everything in the chemicals that they used, mercury, salt, gold, lead, all of those, not ingredients, but all of those chemical compounds were allegories for something in the spirit, something in the man that they were changing. And so once you became fluent at understanding the symbols and understanding the symbolic compounds, then you and I could have a conversation about this turning chemical and mixing this and refining this and the 7 degrees of alchemy, and you and I would both know that we were talking about something we were going through in our lives, that we were going through the distillation process within. And so it boils up. Have you ever had a situation that felt like it was boiling inside? It's just, we are the laboratory, the chemical inside, the makeups, that all is happening within us, right? Jesus spoke about the kingdom within. The kingdom is within you. Don't search here, don't search there for it. You won't find it because it's you. And so when you look at it that way, that's what alchemy was doing. Now there are alchemists. I have friends that are alchemists that also do the laboratory work and the chemical work as well, because there's there's an effect between the two as well that goes a lot deeper. But in the talk that we're having, yes, that was the bigger meaning of what they were doing. It was a spiritual alchemy. It was a spiritual transmutation. Transformation you used, it's the same. It's almost a more pointed word, transmutation, because you're taking something in of one compound, one energetic makeup, like anger as an example, or insecurity, and through an understanding of seeing it differently and working with it inside, you then bring it up to your mind, and it becomes a belief instead of that's not real for me. I see right through it. How could I think I was less? I'm part of being created as part of the whole. I can't give myself life even. How could I think of myself as less? That whole process actually is the alchemic process, the transmutation from lead to gold. Gold is a very high, valuable thing. So is your worth, your value, your truth, not the ego. The ego is the lower. It's needed, right? That's why we're here, is to be able to transform that, and we do it through our experiences. Experience comes in, booms, rocks us, gives us the chemicals to work with. Okay, boom, there's our lead. We got a little bit of iron. We got a little bit of this. Okay, so now we work with that inside. Why does this hurt me? What would love do? How would love see this thing happening right now, this experience that I'm going through? Because I feel it. But the reason I'm feeling it, the reason my mind's giving me as to what it's happening, is almost always not the reason it's happening. It's a lie. That person did this did this happened, the market went up, the market went down, I got this stolen, this. It's the feelings of why we feel that way towards it. This thing got stolen and now I'm freaking out. Well, I mean permanence. Did I think I was going to have it all forever? I was fooling myself, right? So it's everything is the ability to come inside and do the work, that great work I was explaining of alchemy, turning it out. And then, my brother, is what is the best part of it all, is from that gold place, then we emit. We project gold. So then what have we done in the world? We've taken this darkness, this lower mind, this and we've, through us, by our inner work, created a different perception that we feel differently. We've changed the energy within us as a conduit, and now we're spouting the different. And by doing that, can you imagine if we all did that in our world? Would it not be paradise?
Everything would be different.
Who would harm anybody else?
Exactly.
This is what is meant to be. Right? We can have hours of talks of why it's not, but nonetheless, it's not important what's happening out there. It's important what's happening in each one of us. So my challenge for everybody listening, everybody watching today, including us, is how are we being the example to that today, to the best of our abilities? It doesn't mean ever we're going to be perfect. But if we're always asking these questions, like what would love do? What would my higher self, what would be the best, most loving thing I could do in this moment for this person standing in front of me at the sidewalk when I'm going to cross the street and there's somebody beside me? Maybe it's just a smile. Maybe it's something you know they need. Maybe it's just an older lady. It's just like, would you like help across the street? Whatever it is, what is the highest we can be in the moment? And what we do is we end up actually, what alchemy is meant to do is take the even surrounding environment, take the energy in and through us, and spew gold. Rumpelstiltskin took hay, straw, which is of very little worth, and he transmuted it into gold.
Right.
All of the nursery rhymes, all of the stories that we have that have lasted for hundreds of years tell about these stories, and they use the same, like gold, and they use the same ideologies as we use today. It's all about this. It's not about going and paying your bills today. And it's not about getting laid. It's not about making so much money. It's not about doing so well in this other person getting their validation. It's not about all of that. These are the things that we get to bump into and interact and work through, live through our life, but it's not life. Within that, the core to all of it are these challenges, these storms coming up, and how we, as the mirror of nature, will go through that storm and release any branches that need to be released through it and become new through it.
Perfect. Well, look, dude, I don't think this conversation could have gone any better, and we started with, we're not really sure where we're going, so let's get the recording going. So it worked out perfect.
Yeah, man. It always
was
does,
gold.
right? It's gold. We took lead and turned it to gold. Exactly.
I hope so for some people, because this has been a huge challenge for me, is taking the lead in my life, taking those, whether it was, being sexually abused as a kid, and turning that into some sort of gold as I got older, because it really didn't feel like a gift. It didn't feel like anything wonderful. It was,
and I'm not condoning that.
No,
I want to say, disclaimer, I'm not condoning the stuff that happens. I'm saying, okay, it happened. Like if I was there, I would have stopped it, but it went through, it happened. Now what do you do with it? I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to say that because those are heavy subjects, and people out there listening might be going like, well, how do you make light of that?
Well, you don't.
It's very difficult.
You don't make light of it, so to speak, but you do. The whole world benefits if you can transform it or transmutate it into something that's more like gold instead of lead.
How about this? You don't make it light, you bring light to it.
Perfect. Because we need light for growth, and a lack of light will stunt growth. So
exactly. That light of understanding is what makes all the difference in the world to people. And that's what I said. Most of us, because we don't know right and wrong really for us, we're living from a point of view that doesn't take everything into account first.
Yeah. So I think we need to continue to ask questions, and in an effort to get closer to the truth. Because I know I've gotten stuck because my mind has become rigid, and I've chosen this is a truth, this is what I believe, there is no other, and eventually life feeds back to me, Mark, maybe you're a little bit wrong in this area.
And that's the cool part, right? This is not about any kind of judgment of what you're doing or yourself. It's really just about betterment and becoming even that 1% better a day, and seeing more of this in your life, looking and seeing how your life is echoing this back to you, and this truth that, always beckoning you to become the new you, always moving you to that next version.
Excellent. Well, look, my friend, how do people get in touch with you and follow your work or get involved with your work?
ZenLenCoaching.com. ZenLenCoaching.com is probably the best way. I'm also on Facebook, Len Wright, WRIGHT. Look me up, add me. I'm always interested in these conversations, and I'm really looking for people who can glimpse it. They may not fully get it, but they can glimpse it, and they realize that there's more in life than what they're living. And that may be anyone from celebrity who's got the big bucks but not happy, to the point of a person that is just struggling in a relationship to understand, why are these things happening to me? Small understandings, small bits of light actually can radiate a life. So I would love to be able to hear from you then.
Small hinges swing big doors.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah.
All
right, very good, guys. Well, you heard it here. Keep asking questions. Be humble enough to have an open mind. What's that old saying? A mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. So I suggest that, and just keep working towards that 1%. So, Len, I want to thank you again for being here. Everybody check out ZenLenCoaching.com. Zen's a great friend of mine. He's helped me tremendously in my life. And Len, I truly appreciate and love you, brother.
I love you too, man. You're so much of a light to so many others as well, and that's really what it's all about, whether it's in our jobs, in our relationships, or with ourselves, is being that example and being that light. I thank you for having me on. I've had a blast.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, man.
Peace.